when someone witnesses someone pass away, people treat it as if it's just oh yeah, it's just a normal day on the job of life kind of thing. It's just a thing that you must see every day. People don't see this every day enough to actually have their psychology find some kind of grounded connection to that.
Hello, you guys. We're gonna just dive in. I'm gonna be real awkward here in this intro without doing the usual. You know who we are. If you don't, get connected because we're amazing and we're awesome. And welcome to the Daily Humans podcast. Hello, guys. Come on in.
Yeah. Make sure you knock first. No, don't. Just come in.
Yes.
All good.
Oh no, like if people just come in, that might be weird. We have to lock the doors, Ash. Like there's a lot of crazy people out there.
Physical. I mean, okay, we can't go down that road because my mind is like, yes, boundaries online, boundaries physically.
Oh yeah, no, we're open.
Whole episode.
We're open on the weekends, especially Sundays. It's kind of like the main time from 6 a.m. to like 2 a.m. Ashley's time worldwide. So you can come on in then. Under the week, we're busy. Okay. Go hit another store, go hit another podcast, or just check out our previous episodes. That works too. Speaking of previous episodes, though, our last one was very, very fun in the sense not that it was fun to record because Ashley cried and that's valid and okay, but it was actually really fun for me to have that experience of talking about religious trauma. If you haven't watched it yet, if you haven't seen it yet, heard it yet, whatever, definitely check it out because we really talk about some subjects that unfortunately don't get talked about as much. And I know I say that quite a bit, but it's because it's true. And it was just very revolutionary. And I do want to say I'm super proud of you, Ashley, for opening up about your experience because sharing something that affects you so deeply and personally is incredibly brave. I sent her a ton of texts afterwards and while we were editing, and I was like, oh my God, Ashley, you're amazing. Middle finger to the sky where everybody would judge you. But like, you're amazing, truly. And I'm so proud of you. You're so brave. You're so strong. And yes, 2 thumbs up, 5 stars. How did you feel about the last few weeks and discussing this conversation?
Thank you for that question, fellow interviewer. It was a showcasing that healing isn't linear, really. The amount of times that I've gone through religious trauma and even I'm just going to say religious trauma because essentially people used Christianity to justify the behaviors and to validate, their choosings sort of thing. So yes, religious trauma. And no matter how many times you work through something, as I've learned many times, sometimes when it hits, it hits. And it's not even just that isolated incident, it's whatever relates to the feelings from that time. But mostly what got me was hearing Nina say what she said. It was an experience of, whoa, someone acknowledging something that has never been acknowledged before. I don't seek that out from other people and I don't expect it. It has never really happened apart from my psychologist. But in general, people around you, it's never been acknowledged. And yeah, like I said, you don't expect it. And then you hear it. And I was listening to her and I was feeling it coming to the surface and I was taken back. Adjusting to that acknowledgement was major. I could not stop once it came out. We actually had to pause because I just kept going. It just kept flowing. And it obviously needed to. It obviously had to. And I validate that. This is not the first rodeo. And you learn that when you have gone through many unjustified events and things that relate to other things, you just get to a point where there's just no point in validating what you've been through because it makes perfect sense to be upset by it. You're a human being and nothing justifies mistreatment. Nothing. So that was an experience, put it that way. I'm absolutely fine. Um, it was a new experience in some sense as well. Like I said, with hearing what Nina said, but yeah, I am
Yes,
doing well.
that's good. I'm glad that you are. And it's something that I said to Ashley before, but you know, you're absolutely valid in your own experience and what you've been through. And I think it is an act of bravery to even make that distinction of like, it's people. It's not necessarily the religion though that has its own little iffy moments in the history, but it's essentially the people who project that onto others and how they make them feel. It takes a lot to get to that point. It took a lot for me to get to there. Years of work and understanding and education, but you know, it's it really shows who you are as a person and your character, and nobody has the right to invalidate your experience because it is your own. And to anybody out there who's struggling or just maybe realize that they have some trauma within religion or about religion, it is a journey. Take it one step at a time. You know, it is not discussed often in society, but that's what we're here for. And I'm really grateful and glad that we were able to do that episode because it's been a long time coming. Ashley's been like, "Are you ready? Do you want to talk about it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I want to gather some more details." And then eventually I was just like, you know what? Let's just go because the references made or the references that I make can be looked up individually. I don't need to have like a whole checklist there and be like, well, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You know, this is our experience at the end of the day, and that is true and that is valid and that is enough. So
Mm,
yeah,
yeah,
it's really great. It's
definitely
like a
agree.
growth moment, growth journey. Like I we elevated another level, like level 20 of life.
And it's interesting too because before we were discussing talking about this, Nina was like, I don't know how I'm going to feel about it because understandably she's been through a lot within this subject as well.
Yeah.
And we gave it time, which was understandable. And then
Yeah.
I thought to myself, yeah, no, I've got this. Like I know what I'm going to talk about. 100%, this is fine. I got this. It's just when you try to control, it doesn't work out like that. This human
Mm.
experience isn't linear. So that's just another thing to take into accord for your own selves if you
Yeah.
feel that you can. But everything you said when I went over, when we were doing the promos and stuff, when I was watching it, everything you said, I was listening to you thinking she's so smart and educated on something
Thank
like this. That is
you.
like everything you were coming out with. I was thinking to myself, I wish I could take it all.
You have a lot of knowledge,
I can,
okay?
I can, but it's interesting how some things just
Mhm.
completely evaporate from vapid. It's interesting how some things completely evaporate.
Evaporate.
Like I'm saying right, evaporate. I had it.
Mhm.
Evaporate from your mind. So when I was
Mhm.
listening to you speak, I thought, there's nothing more than I'd love. There's nothing more than what the fuck is happening? There is
Take
nothing
it
more
easy.
that I'd love than to also educate myself on the different
Yeah.
aspects of religion because my brother has
Mhm.
as well. And
Mhm.
he talks about the differences between each Bible or book, however
Mhm.
the actual calling of it is.
Yeah.
And I think it's just fascinating, really diving
Mhm.
deep and expanding your knowledge on something yourself and, not listening to the projections, because you said that in the episode too,
Yeah.
that you took it upon yourself and it helped with your healing.
Mhm.
And I think
Yeah.
that is such a really aware thing to do for yourself, truly.
The thing is too, and I do have to acknowledge it, I did not go into the Bible thinking I'm gonna heal from it while reading it. I was like, I'm gonna pick it apart and find the problems, and I'm going to try and figure it out if it really is what it says it is, and try to make sense of it. But the more I read it, I'm like, oh, that's what it was. But those people, they said that thing, and it did. Is this the right Bible? And did I pick up the wrong version? What was I reading before? But I'm like, oh, okay, so this is just evolved because of all the years that have passed since the last time I read it. And then also it's a different version in a different context in a different time, with me now having a spiritual understanding. So I'm able to actually understand what's going on and what is meant, or at least in my own way. But yeah, anyway, it's a journey. It's still ongoing, but just listening to you and your experience and how you phrase it, Ash, you have a lot of wisdom. Please, guys, we have comments now, by the way, on Spotify. So if you guys are listening on Spotify, go back to that episode or those 2 episodes and really just tell it how it is with Ash, because her wisdom is amazing. Okay. She needs the reminder. It's important. I call her the Oracle. It's because she is, and that's where I'll leave it be. I'll even comment. I'm like, you're the Oracle. Like in the Matrix.
That was so like fairy mesmerizing as you said that. You are the Oracle.
Yes. You have amazing insight. It just goes beyond my brain, honestly, every single time. So yeah. But alas, the other side of spirituality is, of course.
Into it again, aren't you? Yeah, you are.
Actually, let me do this. Let me say it like this. Within each transition of our lives comes, of course, the transition of our final stage, and that is death.
Mm-hmm.
Death? Oh my god!
Yeah,
So
some of the operas.
I love that.
That will be our new theme song.
Yeah, it will be. I love that. I love that that was the whole thing with you. I just seriously, I'm still not over that.
Weirdest phases, one day I'm waking up and it's the Phantom of the Opera. The next day it's Hot Potato by the Wiggles. It's just one extreme to the other.
I love that though. That's so important. Variety.
Yummy, yummy. Fruit salad. Tell me you've heard that.
No, I've never heard it.
Have you heard it by the Wiggles? Oh, jeez, you better look up the Wiggles songs, the old ones.
I've never watched the Wiggles because they freaked me out a little bit. So I was like, yeah, no, that's not for me. But
I did not know that.
I watched the Teletubbies, but I was freaked out by the Wiggles. It makes perfect sense.
Teletubbies were on a whole different level. Like,
Yeah.
I don't even think they spoke. I think they spoke their own language, if I remember.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. There was this TV show, just to say this, as some of you may remember. You may have heard it. It was called Ickle Pickle. Have you ever heard of it?
The name sounds familiar, yes, but I can't think of it.
When that first came out, I remember I think my little cousin was watching it. And I was thinking to myself, what have they created? What is this? Ickle pickle pickle. Just saying the theme song because my cousin used to watch it a lot. Ickle pickle pickle woo. I give it my own little thing. If you know, that show was interesting. I'll say that. Very interesting. They took it from 0 to 100 with the kid shows.
Interesting. Okay. I don't think I've ever seen it, but I'll definitely check it out now because that sounds fun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, you should. And the Wiggles as well. Actually, no, you said you're freaked out by them. So, no, don't check them out.
I might revisit.
It for you.
I might revisit.
Randomly. Ooh, should I revisit? We'll find out the next episode how that went.
Yeah, we'll do an update.
We might do a whole episode on kid shows because honestly, there's so much to say
Yeah.
about how it's transitioned.
Yeah.
You know what? Speaking of transition, since we were talking about it before, we're just going to jump back
Mhm.
into the topic because I guarantee that I will start talking about the bear in the big blue house, and I'm just
Yeah.
going to start going there. So, Nina, do you want to start us off on what you'd like to
Death.
share?
It comes for us all.
Oh, that's the start of a horror movie right there.
Yes. Yeah, no. Death has been an interesting topic because throughout, I mean, it's been an interesting topic throughout humanity. We have spiritual aspects to it. We have more human-based aspects to it, solely physical aspects to it. But for a lot of people, they react differently to the topic of death. There are people who are looking forward to it. There are people who are afraid of
I
it.
felt that. I totally felt that energy directed my way. We will explain that in a
Yeah,
minute, just so you
yeah.
don't just jump to the conclusion that, something, something, all good.
But throughout time, everybody deals with it differently. And for me personally, I've had my own run ins with death. And personally, and within the family, and even recently, I had a few scares. So it's a topic we've wanted to discuss for a while now because it's so interesting, so fascinating, so big. And still, people talk about it, but it's more so in the sense of avoiding death, living forever, the fountain of youth, that whole stigma to it. And then now I feel like Ashley has kind of introduced me more and more to the aspect of having a different relationship to death and transition, and knowing that it may be a transition from the physical, but it will never really sever the ties that you have to the people when they transition over to the spiritual or the unseen realm of life. But yeah, join us, grab a cup of coffee or tea or whatever you like, matcha, and let's talk about death. Let's sit down with the Grim Reaper guys.
Oh my God, I love this subject. I think we're for this
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
Cremation or burial? Which one?
We should
We
have
want
done
to
this at a graveyard.
leave and be buried in like an eco pod. Oh, me
Yeah.
too. With a tree. Yeah, me too. Totally. Tubular.
Sometimes I really wonder, are we normal? And not in the sense of like good and unnormal, but like it sounds like, do you want to be buried as a tree? Oh my gosh.
I'd happily raise my hand and say that normality is not within my bones, and I'm
Yeah.
okay with that. This is my last time on this physical plane, so I will take that abnormality and thrill, bathe, sun, whatever in it. 100%, I'll
Yeah.
take that. I don't live for anyone else but myself, so bring it down, darling. Show me the red carpet. I will be abnormal. I do not give a shit.
Yes.
I'm death.
So Death, what's your relationship with Death like, Ashley? When have you met him? How did you like them? Is she
Oh.
nice? Because gender does
Mhm.
not apply to Death, right? It's genderless, it's neutral. But like, how's Death? How's Death? How you feel about Death?
So he knocked on the door yesterday and I opened the door.
Mm.
He's standing there in his robe. Actually, I'm just going to say they were standing there in their robe and holding the fork. And I was like, honey, have you ever cleaned that fork? It looks so dirty. Do you ever clean your robe? It was a little dusty. I let him
Mm.
inside, sat down, had a cup of tea. He wanted a coffee. Sorry, they wanted a coffee. And I was like, no, no. What do you think this is? You're having a black tea.
Hmm.
Okay, because this is the symbolism here. So we had a chat. And he said to me, are you afraid of death? And I said, no, I'm not. I'm not because I read this book and I read other books and I am engulfing myself in just the subject in general to break it down for self, because the way that death has been for me has not been good, obviously. It has not
Mhm.
been, obviously, it's not good. Actually, how do I say this in a validating way? Death doesn't have a positive correlation with it.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't want to laugh. I apologize. Go ahead. Oh.
Question two? Is that what that was? Or were you just like very petitely?
I was copying you. You were like,
Death doesn't exactly understandably have a positive correlation.
Hmm.
Understandably. We've all experienced grief. I've experienced grief. Nina has experienced grief. And potentially, even having this awareness, I will still probably grieve. But it's
Yeah.
just having the knowledge and awareness that there is more to this than just what we've always known it as, you know? And even if that wasn't the case, right? Even if, like, some people say that it's nothingness, it's oblivion. You're kind of just floating in nothingness. That's the only thing I can think of in explain. That's the only way I can explain it, in nothingness. And I think to myself, I get why people see that. I do, because of the way, also because of the way death is perceived, but also to the religious ties to this is everyone has their different beliefs. We acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm intrigued if there is more. So it's not having an attachment if there's not, but also intriguing information that, but also being intrigued that there is. There is, like, people have experienced so many different things when it comes to um, like hypnosis, reincarnation, spiritually, even people that have died and come back, their stories as well. I live for that. I love hearing all these amazing experiences. Let me change that because that just sounds like I'm saying, yes, you died and you came back.
No, it doesn't sound like that. Not at all. Just that you're amazed by these experiences that people have and how intriguing it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I am amazed by the experiences that people have. They're stories that are so worth telling. If you have any, please do, because I really love hearing
Mhm.
them.
Yeah.
There's no abnormality to this, even though I know and I validate the uncomfortability with discussing, experiences like this, because the book that I'm reading, the psychiatrist in the book was talking about how he didn't discuss this with any of his other colleagues because he was afraid. He actually felt fear of what they would perceive him as talking about
Hmm.
this.
Hmm.
But it's like people that truly will hold space for you and will put aside judgment, they're the true people to have the conversations with. If someone doesn't want to have a conversation about it, fine, whatever. We don't
Yeah.
conversate about it. But there are people out there that want to hear, would love to hear, and there is no judgment.
Yeah.
This human experience is inevitable. Let me just say that. It's inevitable. Like anything and everything could happen. So that's my opinion, at least. So my experience with death is that I'm not afraid of it personally. I'm not afraid of when that time comes. And each and every time I read a new piece of information from someone else, and if it resonates, it brings me more into a state of, okay, fair enough. Touche. Yes, yes. My physical body though, that kind of makes me sad that it's gonna
Yeah.
stay here
Yeah.
and decompose essentially. That
Mhm.
does make me sad because this was the body. I think that's the one thing that kind of gets me in some sense. But yeah, that's my very short analogy of my relationship with Mr. Deathy Man. And
Mhm.
he had that tea and he left like a good guest.
Good.
And he was all right. He was all right. What about you, my friend? What's your tale of experience?
I will say this real quick. I yesterday watched a History Channel documentary type of thing. I didn't actually complete the entire episode, but it was talking about how different people um, celebrate death or celebrate the body once the soul has passed on. And there are people in Peru, I believe, and in Latin America and Africa that actually celebrate keeping the body. And in Africa, there are, I don't know which country it was, but there is a tradition with some native tribes where they dig up the body every few years or so and they dance with it and they parade with it in terms of just like showing solidarity that we haven't forgotten you. And even though you've transitioned, we still celebrate with your body. Now, obviously, not everybody's going to want to dig up their grandma and be like, hey, grandma, let's go dance. But I think it is an incredible. I see you kind of smile. No, but like, I think it is an incredible thing to do in its own way. And in Latin
Mm,
America, they keep the skull of the loved one that's passed on and they put them in boxes, they decorate them, they create like art, I would depict it as. They create like these
mm,
artistic pieces out of these skulls and they take them to, I think there's a yearly celebration that comes about where they grab the skull and they celebrate and they walk down the street with it and there's like a big parade and stuff and it's really incredible. Like when I watched it, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit freaked out because I was like, some of them looked a little bit too fresh, but it was just still beautiful to see how
mm,
different cultures, different people around the world treat death differently. And I think a lot in our society, we kind of ignore death, at least in the Western society of it. We kind of ignore
mm,
it. We want to live forever. We don't really acknowledge it. We're afraid of aging, et cetera, et cetera. But seeing that there is variety in how to treat it and what relationships people have with it actually helps me as well with processing death. And when it comes to me personally, I have had, I would say at this point, 2 or 3 near death experiences. So I've come up and close and personal with the Grim Reaper. And it's been, the experiences in and of themselves have not been fantastic, but it has helped me get in touch with the spiritual aspect of life. Without having had those experiences, I would not be where I am today or have the understanding or open-mindedness that I have today. And I personally have had some near death experiences in my life, 2, 3 of them, and that helped shift my perspective and my view of death quite a bit and enabled me to be the person that I am today that can be a bit more open minded with the subject. Now, personally speaking, I recently had a scare with my dog Momo and thinking she would pass away. And that kind of triggered a lot within me. And definitely made me recognize that I do have an issue with letting go and letting things pass or move on, or what's the word, transition. But with me personally, I think I have more fear of not living my life fully rather than death itself. Because I've had, like I said, near death experiences. I've experienced really interesting things after the fact and during the near death experiences where I'm like, okay, we are not alone here. And I know that there are people who view us as just bodies. There are people who don't think we have souls or anything like that. And I don't share in that opinion simply because I've seen and experienced too much stuff in my own life to negate that. But when I was, let's just say, on my deathbed a few years ago, I definitely felt the presence of death in the room and that there was more to life than just the physical aspects in which we see. Now, obviously, there's a lot of discussions going on within the more sciencey aspect of things where it's like, well, it's just your brain firing off neurons and it's not really happening and it's just like a mirage. I think everybody will have different opinions on this, but I think for me personally, and the relationship that I'm trying not to curate with death, is that everything comes and goes, and it's all belonging to the same thing, and we will never be apart. We will never be separate from each other, even when we go from one portal to the next, let's say one reality to the next, one plane of existence to the next. And a big, big, big case in my life was when my grandmother passed away. I was 13 years old, or 12 or 13, somewhere around there. I was in America, and I had a night where I went to bed, and all of a sudden I just thought of her really, really strongly. And I couldn't place my finger on it. And I was just like, why am I thinking of her? Like all of a sudden, just randomly, she just came to my head. I remember looking up at the sky. I had my window open at the time. There was like a lake in front of my window where we lived. And I looked up and it was nighttime. And I looked up at the sky in the darkness and seeing the light of the lake and the little ducks floating around. And I just remember sending her like mentally this message of, I love you. I care about you and I miss you. And then that morning, I woke up to my mother telling me that my grandmother had passed away. And obviously, that was a moment in my life, or that day in particular, where I was very upset. I was very sad. And it really affected me because my grandmother and I were very close. We were like, I called her mom, like mom number two. So we were very connected. But later on that day, after all the crying had been done, and I kind of returned to my room from the living room at some point, I sat down on my bed. And I hope I don't get emotional saying this or telling this story, but I remember sitting down and I just had this moment of being, what I can describe is like being wrapped in a blanket from behind, somebody wrapping you with a blanket. It was so warm and it was filled with so much love. And I was just showered with it at an instant. And to the point where I'm like sitting there, I'm like, what is going on right now? Like, this is not coming from me. This is happening to me. And I just knew immediately that it was my grandmother saying goodbye. And I've never had an experience since then that was like that. But I had felt so much love that I'd never felt in my entire life up until this point. It was like pure, pure love. And it helped me kind of reframe my mindset about what's going on after life, and once we pass away, once we move on to the next plane, because if that's how I felt in that moment when I was showered with just this pure love that I can't describe it with words. It's just something that you can feel. Um, in my mind, personally, it does not have to reflect on other people, but in my mind, that then is what I return to. It's that state of love, that energy of love, that frequency of it. And it was a magical experience. I was a little bit excited at the time because I just discovered ghost hunters and what ghosts are and that those are real. And yes, I believe in ghosts because I have been haunted before. That's a different story though. But I was a little bit excited because I was like, maybe I can communicate with my grandma. And so I took like ideas that I gotten from these ghost shows. And I was like, maybe I should like write her a letter. And I was like, are you here with us? And I like let it sit there in my bedroom. Obviously, nothing came through. Nobody wrote on the notepad anymore outside of my own writing on it. But it was a beautiful moment in my life. And I've had near death experiences when I was younger than that. I've had near death experiences a few years ago, so much older than that time frame in which my grandmother passed away. But every single time I'm overwhelmed by a lot of things happening. And it is definitely, we're not alone. There are definitely people, entities, I would rather say, that help us transition and then also that protect us and that are with us and that are watching over
Mm.
us. But yeah,
Yeah.
what's
Yes,
your
the ones
take?
that show up at 4 a.m. to say, "Let Nina know that I'm here."
Yes. Why don't you tell that story, Ash? That was so fascinating.
Yeah. I've had a few, experiences, um, psychically, I think I can say,
Hmm.
where sometimes I get up at 3, 4, 2 in the morning. I've felt a hand on my arm before, and that story I'll tell. in a minute, but one particular night, I I wasn't fully awake, but I was enough to hear this. It was around 4 in the morning, and don't ask me how I know, I just knew. I had gotten up, I guess, in some sense. Like part of me was awake, the other part of me was still asleep. And from the corner of my room on the side here, I hear, "This is Nina's grandfather." That I think that's all he just said was, "This is Nina's grandfather." And then I just went back to sleep, fully asleep. So it's almost
Wow.
like I woke up to hear that and then I went to sleep.
Hmm.
I messaged Nina in the morning. I said, Nina, have you felt a male presence around you of late?" She goes, "No." And I said, "Well, your grandfather decided to come and visit." And
He
yeah,
decided to stop by.
I just wanted to tell me to let you know that this is Nina's grandfather.
Yeah, it's
And,
amazing because
yeah, yeah, you can
yeah,
go.
good. Okay. It's amazing because it was a day or two after his anniversary when he passed. And it was just insane because I had thought a lot about my grandmother and stuff. And she is somebody that I would say I'm more emotionally connected to. But sometimes I think about my grandfather and I'm like, I don't really get him. Like, vibrationally, like I don't really sense him. I don't really think about him too often because he passed away when I was very young, so I don't really remember much of him, unfortunately. But when she had texted me that, I'm like, a male like energy, like what? No. I'm like, should I be scared? And then she's like, no, your grandpa stopped by. And I'm like, wait, what? That's insane. And then I checked the date, like I said, and it was literally a day or two after his passing, his memorial, his anniversary. And so insane. And that's what I mean with Ashley is the Oracle. She's incredibly connected. Also, the thing she said to me over the past week as I've been kind of navigating grief, which I'll get into a little bit later as well, but just so in touch and exactly what I needed to hear. So thank you for that as well, Ash. Yeah.
Welcome, my friend. It is difficult, as many of you know, to I don't know, to give guidance because you don't know, and not one part of me wants to invalidate or put something aside just to give guidance, just to make it better. That's never the case. Death is a very, very complex subject. It is. It's very complex. I think a lot of people, it's too difficult to even expand on the limited. It's too difficult to expand on the unlimited possibilities of it and the many different stories out there when it comes to it. But the experiences of spirits in my room at certain times, yes, seems to be my room seems to be the party. And seems to be the party. There are nights where I literally say to myself beforehand, nothing and no one is to enter into this space. I am sleeping because sometimes I just get to the point where it's like, no, this is sleep time. And sometimes it freaks me out.
Yeah.
Some moments have freaked me out, definitely, especially when this all first started. Oh, the stories that I could share with you all, but I will save that for another episode because my damnness. It was fascinating. When you first connect, it's almost like you open the doors and they're all like, "Yes, finally, we've been waiting. We've been waiting for you." Your grandfather must have been waiting there as well, like, "Yes, I can finally
Mhm.
tell Nina that I am here. Someone that will hear me." It's like, yeah, but can't you do it during the morning hours or the afternoon hours? Why is it always at night during the AMs? That's my question. I know what people are going to say. I know, but doesn't mean I accept it. Rebuke a little bit. Yeah, it was a fascinating experience.
Mhm.
Definitely. And when you were talking about how different cultures how they treat death. I have definitely seen what you're talking about on YouTube, I believe it was, and it again just fascinated me.
Yeah.
Fascinated. I wasn't freaked out. I wasn't I didn't think, "Oh, this is so oh, that's such an aw" I didn't think anything other than, "Oh my gosh, this is mesmerizing to me," how
Wow.
different cultures treat death and to I've never heard of this before because obviously
Mhm.
in what I've grown up with is the what people know in, saying goodbye to a loved one. It's the same sort of goodbye. It's either cremation or it's burial, and then that's it. Sometimes you might visit the grave, but essentially, yeah, it's not in my family per se, it's not a thing really to visit the grave much afterwards. It's just the process happens, you say goodbye, and then you remember them, I guess, mostly through photos and stuff. So diving deep into what's out there in the world, oh, yeah, I really do respect and have so much openness to the many different ways, especially was it the first thing? I think it was the first thing that I came yeah, no, it was. The first thing that I came in contact with was the Day of the Dead. The Day of the
Mm,
Dead? Yes.
yes.
I think it's called something else.
De la
Um,
Muerte, I think.
I think so. And, what culture is it again? It's not flickering in my brain. It's isn't it like Mexican? Am I
Yeah,
saying
I
that
believe
right?
so. Yeah, I believe so.
Yes. My brain just went through a malfunction. But the Day of the Dead, absolutely, the ofrendas, the entire respect of those loved ones that have passed on, and how people celebrate their life, and they continually do that on a specific day. And yeah, I was truly fascinated by that celebration. Going to the cemetery, and especially the movie Coco. Is it Coco? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, my mind is malfunctioning. I love that movie. I think that movie I really love that movie. I love it so much. It made me just cry like tears of just it was just so beautiful. I love the whole thing. I really did. Like the whole experience. And I thought to myself, I actually think this is a really lovely way to honor loved ones who have passed on.
Yeah.
I think it's a really beautiful celebration of their life to go to the cemetery and light up candles, and it's just so yeah, I truly do have a lot of respect for that. Um, having your own ofrenda, I think is just a beautiful thing too to have. Technically, in some way, without, I guess, the tradition, we also do have that, but we put like we in our home, we have the memorial books
Mm,
up. We don't. We have some photos of those that have
yeah.
passed, especially in the lounge room, but we mainly keep up the memorial books. I don't know why. I really don't. But it's just, I guess it's just something that's always been done, maybe. That's all I
Mhm.
can say. I don't really know. So I guess it is kind of like an ofrenda without the
The
food
party.
and yeah, the party sense of it. Yeah. Um, yeah. There's so many
It's
fascinations
interesting.
to it.
You just reminded me of that too. Like, I think it is in, I don't know if it's in all Asian cultures, but I am familiar with Korean tradition when to honor your ancestors. You know, you make an altar in front of them, you put food out for them, and their spirits are supposed to have that day to eat. I believe it is Chuseok, which is their Thanksgiving. Korea's Thanksgiving, and where you honor your ancestors and your elders in that way. And I think it's really interesting, isn't it? How so many different
Mm.
cultures treat the past or the ones that have passed on. It's so interesting. And I think it's so wild to think that in I would say in German culture and American culture that I've personally encountered and seen and been a part of, it's like, okay, you're gone. That's it. You can keep photos and that's what it is. They're not here anymore. But there
Yeah.
is a spiritual aspect to life, as we've discussed many times. And you can be of the more scientific beliefs, and that's fine as well. But I do believe that there is something past this plane of existence outside of just
Mm.
physical bodies, and that's it.
Yeah. Interesting. And even telling Nina recently, I started reading. I've had this book in my little bookshelf in my room for so long. When I was recommended, actually, I'm exaggerating. It's not been that long, but it feels like it's been long. You know when you buy a book and you leave it on the shelf and it gathers dust? Yeah, it feels like it's been that. But I was recommended this book, and because I had been really struggling, I have been struggling for a long time validating my existence on this planet, really, beyond struggling, to be honest. And I personally didn't see the need or the point of existing. Um, and I just couldn't shake the belief system within that. Nothing was worthwhile. This advocation for life and the way that people advocate for it, to me, I'm like, what are you trying to sell? Are you trying to sell hell? Hell ain't down there, it's up here. Literally. It just sounded like nothing, meaningless to me. All of it, including other things that were going on, but that's for another story. But obviously, this year has been transitioning through a lot of things and also trying to find not just purpose, but why I'm here, essentially. You know, what are the reasons and what can I do while I'm here until I reach an elder age and never come back? That was the joke that Nina was making too. I definitely, just to say this now, I've definitely told Nina so many times that I am not coming back to this planet.
Yeah.
When I depart, when I depart, I will be a spirit helping other people. And if you're spiritual and you've studied all of this and you have your awareness, then you know what I'm talking about. I will be a spirit helping other people, but I will not be a human back on this planet. No way. So that's the joke that she was making, is that I'm okay when that time comes. I will literally be laying there like, take me
Take.
now. I'm ready. I'm ready so many years ago. That will always be my little inside joke. Truly, I
Yeah.
have that joke with a lot of people. They talk like, so are you afraid of death? Ah, let's start. Let's go from there. Um, yeah, so this book was
What's it
recommended to
called?
me to help. Oh, I'll tell you. It's called Many Lives, Many Masters by Dr. Brian Weiss or Wes.
Hmm.
I don't know how to say his surname, and I apologize to him. So yeah, this is this book, the true story of a prominent psychiatrist, his young patient, and the past life therapy that changed both of their lives. This was actually quite difficult to find, may I just say. Um, I found it on Amazon, which you'd think actually that doesn't sound too, hard because Amazon is widely known and used. I was trying to look outside of Amazon, I was trying to look at Booktopia or, just other places,
Yeah.
apart from just Amazon. But even in other bookstores, even bookstores that we have, nope, it wasn't even there. He's more than one book. He's got four books and couldn't find them. And I'm like, they're trying to stop me from finding out why I'm here, aren't they? Reading it, I've just started reading it. It's been sitting up there for a while. For some reason, I just took it out one day and I just thought, you've been on my mind. There is a reason you've been on my mind. I'm going to read you. Sat outside, started reading, and it was like, okay, at the start, I was like, all right, here we go. someone is getting hypnotized, past life is coming in, here we go. And then it just kept getting fascinating and more fascinating. And in the book, they actually reference death. I should actually reference this first with this book too, so you know what I'm talking about. But basically, a psychiatrist who was very much within science belief, um, not spiritual, just science based
Mhm.
theories. A patient came to see him named Catherine, and she was going through very high levels of anxiety, stress, just not coping on day to day life. So he decided to do hypnosis on her, hypnosis therapy.
Mhm.
And from there, it's just an unfolding of him realizing that, like, just completely challenging his belief systems because he's seeing in front of him something that he can't even explain. He had to do research on it. So it completely changed his life. And each session that he had with her, she was talking, I think she's had 87 lives on this planet. Oh, girl, you deserve a medal. You deserve an award. You deserve to be acknowledged with a statue. If you've been here that many times, you deserve something. Truly. Human evolution is on YouTube. And when you watch it, when I watch it, if any of you have done hypnosis and you've been alive during those times, you 100% deserve your name to be in the sky, in my opinion. Because, my damn, her past lives were absolutely traumatic. Literally. They went through a few of them. I haven't finished reading the book yet. I'm about, I'm almost there. I'm almost at the end. But from the ones that she has shared so far, that she's tapped into, she was a slave in some of her past lives. She was a maid. She was very poor. She even went to war in one of her past lives.
Wow.
All I kept reading was, did she ever get a break in one of her lives? This bam, bam, bam. I couldn't believe it. No wonder why she's dealing with the fear of. She even got in one of her past lives, she passed by someone choking her. So in her life now, she had a fear of choking and a fear of drowning because in one of her past
Mm.
lives she died by drowning. So
Mhm.
it's amazing as I was reading it. Not hearing. It was mesmerizing for me reading it. Not just her changes and healing, but also him as well, the psychiatrist, in realizing, whoa, and he was really, I've gone through this as well. He was really going back and forth. Like, no, this can't be true. This can't be happening right now. This is just not a thing. No way. He was really going through the ringer, trying to validate another existence that he has never acknowledged before, didn't believe in, really. So it really hit his psyche. And I truly relate to that. Sometimes I still go back and forth with spirituality because I think, nah, I definitely still have my moments. It's a part of my astrology chart that apparently that's part of my personality. So I will happily integrate it. But then I have my moments where I'm going back and forth and I'm like, I don't know about this. So yeah, so just a quick analogy on the book, as quick as I possibly can. If you want to read it, please do read it. Truly, it helped me understand that one, death isn't the end. It's not oblivion, as people say. I wasn't worried about that personally anyway, but it helped me understand that number one, I have a choice, which was invigorating, invigorating, knowing that I don't have to come back here. Oh, I was excited, Nina, even
Yeah.
though the voice message, I was thrilled, wasn't I? Over the
Yeah,
joy.
you were. You were so excited. I was like, she found the cheat code, guys.
Ah, where do I sign? Yeah, I did. And when I was reading that, because just to preference this as well, um, essentially through her, she's very psychic, and through doing hypnosis, she taps into it quite deeply too. It really opened up a floodgate for her. So through her, they in the book they call them the masters, higher spiritual beings, I'm going to say. They started talking to him through her and were telling him this is also an experience mostly for you, as well as it's part of her healing. This is also for you to help people heal their past lives in this life, to do what they basically to be a part of the healing collective, really. And they were talking about death, and they were talking about how society holds on to such a I get it out. I get it. Yeah. If I could remember which page it's on. No, I believed it. Concern the fear of death, which is the fear deep within the volcano. The fear of death, that hidden, constant fear that no amount of money or power can neutralize. This is the core. But if people knew that life is endless, so we never die, we were never really born, then this fear would dissolve. If they knew that they had lived countless times before and would live countless times after, unless you say otherwise, how reassured they would feel. If they knew that spirits were around to help them while they were in physical state, and that after death, in spiritual state, they would join these spirits, including their deceased loved ones, how comforted they would be. If they knew that guardian angels really did exist, how much safer would they feel? If they knew that acts of violence and injustices against people did not go unnoted, but had to be repaid in kind in other lifetimes, how much less anger and desire for vengeance they would harbor. And there's a lot more down here too. To be greedy or power hungry has no value whatsoever. That part there, I mean, it definitely intrigued me
Mm-hmm.
in a certain sense of, okay, well, I definitely think that something like this can give some people the validation that something that you think is the end, the possibility of more, it's truly there. And the experiences, not just in this book, but out there, are the proof of that. For
Yeah.
me, I just found it fascinating. Again, I don't really need it to ground anything, really, does that make
Yeah.
sense? Like, I don't have
Yeah.
this immense fear of death, but I think this provides something for those that it
Yeah.
needs to. Because the fear of death, I'm not going to invalidate how it felt, even watching my own nan pass away. I'm not going to invalidate that, even though
Mm-hmm.
I might resonate to this and I might believe what I believe, that, like I said, it's not linear. Like many things, it's not linear to experience witnessing death, to even have a story to tell where you've experienced it yourself. It's terrifying for many people, as well as coming out and saying, I survived death and this is my story. On the other side, it's still terrifying. I will say, when it comes to my nan's death, the one thing I definitely want to advocate for, since humanity seems to forget about the human experience more times than I like to count on my fingers, witnessing something like witnessing something like your loved one transitioning, in my words, when you've not seen that before, or you have, but it shows up in a different way. Because apparently, when people pass away, it can be different to the next person. Like there's something called a death rattle. Have you heard of that? The death rattle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. There, there's different stories out there of how people have witnessed their loved ones pass on that deserve validation. Because, like many things, when someone witnesses someone pass away, people treat it as if it's just a, oh yeah, it's just a normal day on the job of life kind of thing. It's just a thing that you must see every day. People don't see this every day enough to actually have their psychology find some kind of grounded connection to that. When I witnessed my nan pass away, that was my first time witnessing it like that. Essentially, I was standing in front of her bed and she was really struggling to breathe. She was kind of like, it was literally that movement. And then all of a sudden, because the ambulance was there and they had a heart monitor attached, and the number is just dropping.
Mm.
So your psychology is making sense of witnessing that, and then the heart monitor, you can hear it in the background, and you're watching it drop, 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 and I'm watching her change in front of my eyes. Because essentially, at one given point, I looked at the heart monitor, and then I looked at her, and her eyes had gone black, basically. And then
Mm.
all of a sudden, she just went, and then that was it. She passed in that exact moment. And for
Wow.
me, when I got home, I had to just sit there and process that myself, witnessing that.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is just, it's another part of the human experience, but I've got to validate how am I going to process this? What do I need to do for myself to
Yeah.
validate what may come up from that? But I've always heard, always when it comes to death and grief, how people go about it, and everyone is entitled to it, but the invalidation of it is such a widespread, it's such a common denominator, the
Yeah.
invalidation of grief. For someone's psychology, it just depends how you're going to absorb seeing that. No matter if it's your first time or your second time, I said it at the start talking about the religious episode that something that I've worked through quite a few times with my psychologist, that I've journaled and shadow worked, in the moment talking about it, it triggered me. It came up.
Yeah.
Many other
Yeah.
things came up. The experience isn't linear, as I will say a million times if I have to validate that you just don't know, for starters, how you're going to process something like that. And you don't know how other people are going to process something like that. Even if they were fine the first time witnessing it, the second time could be different. Because again, catering to the reality that people pass differently, whether it's the experience that I witnessed with my nan or the experience that other people have had with the death rattle. And there are other things as well, but I can't remember the name of them. But there's so many different experiences with death. None of it deserves to be invalidated. It deserves to be acknowledged, and we deserve to have empathy and compassion for each other in what is a process. And it's a consistent process, right? As we age, death will continue to happen. It will continue. And it can be different with each individual. And that will be a new process from that person to the other, to the other. The feelings, like when it's my parents, it will be different because there's a different connection there. There are so many, I'm going to get it on a merch t-shirt. There are so many layers to this.
Yeah.
There are so many layers to grief, and there's so many layers to death. All of it deserves validation. So just keep that in mind. It's easy for someone to say, it's this is a part of the reality. This is what it is. You'll be fine. Just deal with it. Just get over it. It's easier to say that, which it actually isn't easier to say that, because the repercussion of being invalidating is that people don't forget that you were invalidating.
You're so right. Yeah. And something that I heard a little while ago was actually from a TV show I've been getting into recently, and that was grief is your mind trying to understand something that cannot be explained. The
Mm.
sadness, the anger, the frustration, this scariness of it all. It brings up so many different things within people, and even your own For me personally, and if I may share, um, this last week I had a little bit of a scare with my dog and a vet diagnosing her with cancer, and it was not cancer. So there was like a whole brief week where, a brief, I would not say, like forever long week where I was just suffering. I was going through it and I was just like, no, how, like there was the whole process of like denial and anger and it cannot be. And once I started kind of reaching acceptance, as we're like, oh no, she's fine. So that was like a whole thing from the universe. I was like, really, really, but it brought up something that I didn't really think of as much. Like I think of it abstractly, but never really as personal as I did during that time, and that is eventually I will go too. And I said this to Ashley then, and I'll say it now. I was in my backyard and I was looking at the trees. And I'm like, it's kind of insane depending on what species you are on this planet. You can experience so much death and regrowth and renewal. Trees outlive us most of the time. They see us die. Well, not with eyes, obviously, but trees witness us die and come and go. We witness our pets come and
Yeah.
go because usually they have a shorter lifespan than us, depending on what animal it is. We see the circle of life with our family members as well, and it's a whole process, and it's circular, it's secular, and it is really
Mhm.
interesting. But it really confronted me with my own death, because I was like, eventually that's going to be me, and I never know when that's going to be. I can live until 1,000, or I can live until tomorrow. We never know when the final day will be. And thus, for me in that particular moment, and something that I'm still going to be working on and working through, rather than fearing my own death, like I said, it's more so of like not having lived the life that I wanted to live. But on the other aspect of witnessing somebody else's death, I haven't had that as much. When my grandmother passed away, I was in a different country. I was in the States. When my father passed away from cancer, I was in the country. I was in Germany, but there were a lot of things going on where I did not witness his death like Ashley did. And I was not able to go to the funeral due to certain reasons coming up and due to my own sickness at the time. But witnessing Momo being in that position, it was like confronting me with walking somebody to the edge of life, walking somebody to the river of life and being like, okay, you get to decide when you go, and becoming okay with that. And oh gosh, I'm getting emotional now just thinking about it, because it's an honor to do that. But it was something that I really struggled with, because it's like, I don't want to let go. You got to live forever. As we all are with certain people or pets that we have, we don't want to let
Mm,
go. We love them so
yeah.
much. But I realized, and Ashley made me aware of this, and Jay, our editor, as well, where it's like you can love something and not own it. And it's been a lesson that I've been learning as well, where it's like you have to
Yeah.
border the fear and know how much energy you're even like projecting onto her, and then also understand that my mom was telling me this is out of your control. You have to let go. You have to just let the process be what it is. You can't fear it, because in fearing it, you're rejecting something within the experience that you're witnessing. And it's like, yeah, but no. I don't want to let go. That's my dog. I get to decide. No, 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 no. She's going to live until I'm 100. She's going to outlive me. But rationally
Yep.
speaking, that's not going to happen. Right. And I have to, my personal journey now is learning in how to accompany somebody in that stage of their life. And it is a blessing to be able to do that, to know somebody, to know an animal, to be able to love something that is so finite, however you pronounce the word, because the experience that I'm learning or processing through with Momo from last week, those are experiences that are teaching me how to do that and show up for the people in my life later on, whether that be my mother one day, or friends, or a spouse, or even future children. Hopefully, I don't have to experience that, but you never know with life. And so you get to learn. And how much I keep having Winnie the Pooh in my head, and I have to quote this, but there's this Winnie the Pooh quote that goes, how great it is. I'm going to paraphrase here, I'm going to mess it up. But how great is it to know something that you love, to miss something that you love so much? Because in the missing, in the fear of it, in the there's a word in German called Betreuung, and I'm not sure what it is in English. It's something along the lines of accompanying, but it's a little bit more meaningful in German. One of the props I give German words, or Germany as a whole, we have a few words that hit just a little bit different than in English. But anyway, in the accompanying of a soul in their death phase of life, that is such a sacred moment. And my lesson now is in how to appreciate that, how to accompany that other soul without projecting my own fear and like nihilism and fatalism in some aspects, like nothing means anything, everything goes, and I am always suffering. Like, it's not about me, it's about learning how to best serve somebody else in that stage and what to do and how to make them feel comfortable. And then Ashley helped me in the aspect of like, there's more, like, you can reinvent your relationship to death. Like, it doesn't end here. And I know that, but it's like, in that moment, you're so afraid. And that's the thing that also got me with the celebration in Latin America, where they walk around with the skulls. It's like, how could you do that? That's like weird. And I, not in a disrespectful way, obviously, but like, to me, it was so shocking seeing it because I've never seen something like that. And it was like confronting me with my own death. You know, eventually I will be that skull. I have that skull right here in this head. And it's a beautiful thing to see other people celebrate it differently or appreciate or go about it differently. And so my lesson right now is to not attach myself to the physical aspect of death, where it's like here one moment, gone the next, and trying to prepare myself and oh my God, and my emotions and having that just overflow. You know, grieve, let it out, but also don't let it overtake you. But my lesson is, how can I best accompany you while you're making your final moments through this passage of life? And that is such a beautiful thing to be able to experience. And it's something that I really just, I appreciate you having shown up that way for your grandmother. It is such a beautiful thing to be able to show up in that way. And it is special and it is beautiful. And yes, after witnessing something like that, you have to process it in your own way and in your way. And it's the worst thing possible. Can I just say this? When people put a timeline on your grief, because I've had that happen in the past when I've lost pets
Mm.
prior, where it's like, it's just a dog. Get over it. Look, you got to work next week. Go ahead. Or you got to, like, I've heard people in, even in books that I've read, where it's like, my mother died. She was a pillar of my life. The next day I went back to work. And I'm like, what? You can do that? Like, I understand that people don't always have the luxury of taking time off, but it's like, why are we living in a culture that's, again, trumping productivity over actually acknowledging grief and emotions and being human? You know what I mean? And
Mm.
so you shouldn't have to go back to work if you're grieving a loss. You know, you can call in sick, get PTO, pay time off. I'm like, no, there should be things in place in our culture that really honors the tradition and the transition of death and losing a family member, you know, and even children and things like that, them going back into school. It's like, where is the time to actually process this? And why aren't we putting that into place within our cultures more like these other people do, like these other cultures are doing? Um, so it is an ongoing journey for me in learning how to help somebody else transition, because that is my biggest fear. It's people I love dying, not myself. You know what? I can go, you stay though, like you live forever, you know, but that's not reasonable, because then that would be me asserting dominance over life and trying to control life in the sense of everything has to live forever. And that's not natural either. You know, there's negative effects of that. But
Mm,
and not really something that I personally align with in belief form, where it's like, we gotta live forever. We gotta put ourselves in cryo freeze and, all this stuff. Like, we're not meant to be here forever. Everything has to have its cycle. So it's a beautiful journey. And I will say this, having friends like Ashley that can ground you and that can help you through times like that is beautiful. It's amazing. And it's really makes a massive difference. I will leave it at that. It
mm.
makes a massive difference.
It does, it really does.
It really
And
does.
too, when you're talking about the grief, it
Yeah.
really does. Our society really does, the way that it is structured really does showcase how invalidated the human experience really is.
Hmm.
The fact that you cannot have time off. I'm not going to say every workplace is like this, but in general sense, having time
Yeah.
off to grieve, um, not having time to look after your children, yet society advocates to have children. Like, oh gosh, if I go there, this episode will turn from death to how much I truly think this society wasn't built for human beings, but
Yeah.
for robots
Yeah.
to continue profit. That's just really it to me.
Yeah.
I don't see the point in creating a whole web, interconnected web, and just keep doing that through something that is as simple as this goes off profit. Truly. Mm. I literally was going to say something after that. I'm like, I have to stop myself because we're not talking about that. But it always has peed me off that people don't get time to grieve and
Yeah.
that it's a choice between going through financial stress or going to work and literally spending the whole time trying to hold yourself and keep yourself
Yeah.
together. I think that
Yeah.
is a really heinous thing to ask of anyone who has
Yeah.
lost their partner, their child, their mother, their father, their uncle, whoever it is, a friend,
Yeah.
whoever it is, to ask them to hold it together, to go to work. Oh, you have to go to work because you have to live. Yeah. And then you want to advocate for mental health. What does that do to someone's mental health if they have to hold themselves together to be able to
Right.
afford living? Oh,
Yeah.
reason 1000 why coming back to this human experience.
Yeah. I will just say this real quick, because Ashley mentioned her book that helped me, and anybody else that this may help, I want to recommend that because I've noticed throughout my little grief moment that I'm still trying to transition out of now with patients. Emotions really overtook me to the point where they were torturing me further than it needed to be happening, if that makes any sense. But I've read a book and I'm currently still reading it, even though everything is fine. How to Live When a Loved One Dies. And it's by Thich Nhat Hanh, who was a Buddhist? Buddhist. And this podcast is so like serious and fun at the same time. Serious and unserious. But yeah, Buddhist
Changed accents
and
when you said that. Buddhist.
Buddhist. Yeah, he was a Buddhist, and his teaching is always return back to center, focus on your breathing. Your breathing is kind of your anchor when over emotions overcome you. And it's something that really helped me in the last few days now. Obviously, I'm getting back to that point of like, everything is normal. Nobody's going to die for now. You're fine. Everything's fine. But it's
Mm,
still, it plays on your fears when it's people you really care
mhm.
about and love. But
Yeah.
throughout this experience, I think back to the time when I was suicidal and I wanted to end my life when I was a teen and I was at my worst moments in life to now coming to a better understanding with my life, the finite time we have, and then also the loved ones we have, and how those timelines may not coincide always. So it's a process, but don't let anybody pressure you, even within the society in which we live in. I will say this, in the time that I've grieved, I've obviously control freak me, had to make plans because I'm like, I got to be prepared for when it happens. What am I going to do? What are the processes? I researched some stuff, and even though it's not going to happen, it really helped with the process of letting somebody go. Where it's like, okay, these are the processes of different burials. This is what you can do. This is, you can do it at home. You can do it at the vet in that sense. And that really helped. And it made me realize you can still give that person, that animal, whoever it is that you're grieving or having to let go, love in the process while still preparing. If you are in the stage of preparing, don't prepare too soon. I definitely did that as a fault. But like, you can give them love and care and respect even in the process of letting them go in the more physical sense, in planning funerals and things like that. So yeah.
Mm. Yeah. It's not easy when it's especially when like well, like you, I think this experience of losing a pet because you're so close to Momo and I'm so close to
Mm-hmm.
mine,
Yeah.
and the attachments that are attached to them as a pet owner, I'm sure maybe people might know themselves what this is, but you're dealing with a lot of you're dealing with those attachments essentially.
Yeah.
The attachments that I have to my dogs are the fact that they were presently there through the worst stages of my life. And there was
Exactly.
no
Yeah.
one else. It was just them. So it's the fear of losing that. It's the fear of not seeing them around anymore physically,
Yeah.
not being able to pat them, hold them, play with them. Like Mila, when she plays, I swear she has bit my face once because she gets so excited. But it's just these things that you recollect
Mm-hmm.
that understandably get you to this point.
Yeah.
And it's validating that as well. But also, like Nina says, and I've had the conversation with her, I also, just like Nina, want to get to a point where it's validating the grief, but being able to sit in a place of I can validate these feelings, but I can also sit down, move, ground, breathe,
Yeah.
all that stuff too. Because when I thought about losing my dogs, every time I thought about it, I would honestly just, all I could see myself was literally just existing in my bed for a
Yeah.
very long time.
Yeah.
And I don't see the point in moving. I don't even see the point in eating. I don't see the point in sleeping. That was my mentality to this, and I don't give a crap what anyone thinks.
Right.
They play such an important part in my life, and I'd hope so for them too.
Yeah.
Except, sometimes I question that. Nah. I would hope that I do too. I'm sure that I do. They play such a big part and they've had such a major role in my journey. They are the greatest support system and they mean so much. And just losing that, it's a lot. As Nina said, the entire thing is a lot. But I do believe that we can expand our knowledge on
Yeah.
how to, like I said, validate it and also process through it too, which is what I want as well,
Yeah.
without controlling it. Hopefully not, but then that's a whole different pathway within itself.
Yeah.
So, yes, the conversation of death will continue another episode in the future. Maybe we'll see. There's so much more to say about it, but
Oh yeah. Truly.
we'll be here for a long time.
Yes.
A very long time. Do you all have days? Do you? You can sit here with us for days. Let's have a chat. What else would you like to talk about? Because there's so much. There's layers.
Yeah.
You want to talk about how grief is invalidated? Yeah, let's do that. Human experience is a shite house. Yes, let's talk about that. That's whatever. It's all connected at the end of the day. Let's talk
Yeah.
about how I worry that there's not going to be enough places to put people because cemeteries are overloaded. And that
Yes.
just, I don't know what they're going to do about that in the future.
Yeah. The catacombs are gonna make a comeback, I think. And that's gonna be very
Mm.
disturbing. I will end it at this. I do want to say this. Do you guys think that when you pass, your body should be together, or do you think it would be okay to be separated from aspects of your body? Let's say your head is somewhere different where your legs are, etc. Because that was a big debate
Question.
with the catacombs. A lot of people think for your soul to transition, your body needs to be together. Other people think that if you separate it, it's going to help with space. But again, it's like, will your soul find peace? Will your soul be at rest? Some people even think your soul resides in your bones a little bit longer after you pass. I don't
Mm.
personally believe that, but it's interesting. So, how would you like to be buried? And what do you think about the process? That's like my leave off question for you guys.
I'm all for eco pods 100%, but they need to be affordable. Otherwise, I don't like if you're trying to save the ecosystem, but then
Yeah.
you're putting a lot of money on that. Like, think about that. Otherwise, I'm just going to put myself in the ground in a blanket or something that is eco-friendly, also, because that's just at the point, you know.
Yeah.
Actually, just to say this last thing too, because you made me think about it, and I will have to say, Egyptian mummification. What was the
Mm.
reason that they took the organs out again and put them in jars? What was the reason for that again? Do you remember? It was something to do
I
with the afterlife.
Yeah, I think they put them in with gold and stuff to take over into the afterlife, but they removed the organs and stuff because I think they thought it hindered your soul from passing through somehow.
You might want that option. Some of you
Just
might
suck
want
the
that
brain out.
option. Mummification, but not the way they did it in the movie with what's his name, Emotep. They put him in there,
Yeah.
and then they put those disgusting bugs in there, and then they
Oh
lock him
yeah.
in a vault, and nobody wants to sign up for that crap.
Nah, I'm good. I'm gonna be a tree. That's my resolution.
Same.
Um,
You could be an apple tree because you're an apple to my eye, and you're the apple to apple pie.
I don't know if I like people eating off of my dead body, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Okay, it's going to be
Well,
a good one.
technically, I'll be part
It's
of the
not dead
tree.
body.
So
It's
eating
going.
me.
The tree is going to take the nutrients from you, and it's not
Yeah,
going to
that's
grow.
what I need
It'll take the
apples. It's
nutrients
like
from you.
cannibalism.
The apples aren't going to be Nina's body. Like Nina's body parts. Where is her
No.
liver? In this one apple. Here is her kidney in another apple. Like you take a bite out of it. What the? Like a movie thing. Like she's just gonna grow in the tree and become the tree, and her arms are gonna pop out, her head's gonna pop out of the top. I'm a tree.
Oh gosh. Yeah, no, I was thinking
I'm the
pine trees.
Macarena.
Pine trees, not the Macarena. Yeah. Oh,
Tree? That's beautiful.
I like pine trees. They're like my favorite trees. So I was thinking pine tree or sequoia because I like to be like a big, strong tree.
Touche. Touche. A maple tree would be nice.
Mm, yeah. We're going to pick out the tree. We're going to go tree shopping, guys. Like, this is where my body will go.
Imagine a salesperson. So, what are you looking for today? Our death tree. The
Yeah.
ones that we're going to grow into from our bodies. They'd be like, okay,
Oh, and get somebody else here, you guys.
Marge, can you come to aisle 10? There are some fuckers here that are asking dumb shit.
But yeah.
Marge comes over. So, ladies, what can I get for you today? We're looking for our death tree, Marge. Your what? Our death tree. Are you clinically insane, ladies? Yes,
Yes.
we are. Deathly insane. Deathly.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, geez. Okay, so thank you for joining us. Much appreciated to you all. Take care of yourselves. Auf Wiedersehen.
Until the next
Self-care.
life, you guys.
Love yourself. Until the next life, but I'll be a spirit talking to you, so I won't come into your bedrooms at 4 a.m. Bye-bye. Auf Wiedersehen. Toodaloo.
Bye, guys. Have a good time.